If you think Pinterest is just for designing boards for decorating your house or creating the perfect wedding, it isn't. And it isn't social media. And that's the point. Pinterest helps e-commerce businesses, and we're going to find out how. Welcome back to Retail Reckoning. I'm Clare Bailey, the Retail Champion, and today we're talking about Pinterest, which is a bit of a Marmite platform in so much as people love it or not, and in fact completely ignore it. And I know many retailers have dismissed it as just another social media channel, more work to do. But from what I understand from my good colleague Francis, who's joining us today, Pinterest is quite different. And we're going to dive into that and look about how a retailer can use Pinterest to transform their e-commerce traffic and growth strategy.
Yeah, retail reckoning, no space for dusty shelves, 'cause retail reckoning owns the floor.
So, welcome Francis. You're the Pinterest and visual search specialist, and you're part of the team at the Retail Champion. Please, let's get started. Tell us all about Pinterest.
Where would you like me to start? I think you touched on it in your intro as well, actually, that it's not social media. And a lot of people do put it into the sort of social media bundle of things. And they often think, God, I can't handle another social media platform. But what it actually is a visual search engine, which takes you like away from that social media type of content. And it's all about sort of keywords, searchability, but with a visual element as well.
So how does that differ from things like Instagram or TikTok?
So I always like to describe Pinterest as if you put Instagram and Google together, you will get Pinterest. So it does have the visual aestheticness of Instagram. So it is a very visual platform, which is what we love about Instagram. It is very visual, photos, videos, etc. But it has the power of a search engine like Google. So put them both together and then you get Pinterest. And then people always say to me, well, if it's just a search engine, why can't I just use Google? We know like 70% of people are visual learners. And isn't it much more exciting to look at a big page of photos, videos, color, all that visual, rather than just a page of Google results, which is just like white, black, scroll, scroll, scroll.
So what's different about how people who use Pinterest are thinking compared to how they might use Instagram?
When we use Instagram, like your everyday user on Instagram is probably opening the app multiple times a day, but not often with any intent. You know, it's often used as a distraction from what we're supposed to be doing with our day or, you know, something that we do when we're waiting for something. So we're waiting at the school, you know, we're waiting in the car at the school run. We're waiting in a queue at the supermarket. We're sat waiting for a flight or we're on a plane, train, whatever. You know, it's something that we do to kind of distract ourselves with, you know, often with very little thought about what we're doing. And that's where the doom scrolling comes in. You know, we're just like mindlessly scrolling, not really looking for anything in particular, but hoping something will kind of pique our interest. But with Pinterest, you go on the platform because you've already made that decision that you know you need to look for something. You're already looking for inspiration or ideas. And you know what you said in the beginning, so it's not just a platform for DIY gardens, nails, weddings, etc. But people do go to the platform because they are looking for something. So their intent is already there. They're already being intentional on the platform. Because to use it, you actually have to physically type something in the search bar. So you're already sort of capturing, you don't have to capture their attention first because they've already come with that intent. So you're already further down that buyer journey. So they may not know necessarily what it is that they're looking for, but they know in their head that they've got an idea or a problem that they want solving. And then so they're coming to Pinterest for that sort of ideas, solutions, inspiration, you know, so it's very intentional. It's a very intentional platform, but also very positive because generally when you're looking for something like that, it's because you want something better. So we don't come to Pinterest to look for like the scaremongering clickbaity news that you find on other sites, you know, no names mentioned, but you do come to Pinterest because it's like, it's a very positive place to be.
Okay. And that would matter, of course, for retailers because having somebody with intent is pretty much gold dust because if you've got, I guess, the right imagery or the right findability, discoverability, you're more likely to drive traffic. Would that be about right?
Yeah, that's right. And also, if you're, it's a very positive place to be. And, stats show as well that if your business is represented in a positive space, then people are more likely to buy from you because they feel good. It's that dopamine effect as well when they're on the platform. And also what you said about, yes, searchability, the images are super, that's really important to be discovered. So that's when we sort of start to look more at like the SEO and the keywords type of thing. And also those images and, making your imagery really sort of scroll stopping as well, which is really important for your e-commerce retailers as well. You want your products and services to be like discovered, very clear, very positive, just like they are on your website.
And I know when we chatted about this before, you were explaining to me personally about, why would we be recommending this to e-commerce retailers? And there was that differentiation between the longevity of the content. Explain the difference again with the longevity between Pinterest and things like Instagram, because that I found that really interesting.
Yeah, so when you're on platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, the lifespan of your content is so short. If you going back to that doom scrolling as well, you've got seconds to capture people's attention because we just scroll so quickly past everybody's content and it might never be seen again. So TikTok and Instagram, I think TikTok's the shortest. I'm pretty sure it's less than, the lifespan can be less than a minute sometimes. But on Pinterest, because it's a search engine, your lifespan can be up to 2 years. People can be rediscovering your products 18 months to 2 years down the line. And because it's it's very seasonal and it's very trend led. Imagine you've got a diary or a calendar. Obviously, people start looking for them around about sort of September, October time. They might gift them for Christmas presents and then everybody starts using them in January. And then it sort of dips off, doesn't it? We're not really looking for diaries and things like at Easter. But if you think you've got a diary that is January to December, then every year round about September, that is going to get discovered and discovered and discovered again. So, it can go on for years. Is on your Instagram content or your TikTok content, those videos that maybe took somebody an hour to create, the lifespan is literally seconds for them.
So in terms of that then, can you explain how that drives that click-through rate through to e-commerce and helps to then obviously provide, I guess what you're describing is evergreen content. But how do they actually create that then? Because you're saying it's got a long shelf life and it can be discovered months afterwards. But how would they go about putting that together so that they are discoverable in the maximum possible way? A bit like search engine optimization, I guess, but within the Pinterest environment.
So you would set up your Pinterest account, Pinterest business account. It's free. And you link that account to your website. So say, for example, there's a Pinterest does Shopify integration really, really easily. So say you've got a Shopify site, which has got all your products on it. You can integrate that into Pinterest and it will automatically pull through all your products onto your Pinterest account. So say you are a fashion retailer with an online fashion shop and it's on Shopify. So you could do that. It would pull through all your products and display them with the prices and the inventory, etc. It would pull through all the descriptions, which will also already be sort of keyword heavy. And in those keywords, that is your search terms. So somebody's coming onto the platform, they know that they need a dress for a wedding, but they don't necessarily know what that dress looks like, what the brand is, where they're going to find it. They're just going to be on the platform typing in these key search terms such as wedding dress for the summer, floral wedding dress, maxi dress, whatever. And those keywords will match up with those keywords from that store. And then that's how you get discovered on there. The other way to do it is you can create your pins through the lovely Canva website, which I'm sure everybody uses. But you can create your pins on Canva and you can upload them onto Pinterest and then you just link them to the product. So you upload your pin, you add in your title and description, which is all very keyword heavy, and then you add your URL link. So when somebody discovers that pin through their searching, they will just click through and it will take them through to the website and then they can shop really easily.
Now, I know from conversations we've had with our other colleague, Steph, who does the e-commerce side of things, that it's really important to make sure that the product descriptions are well articulated, good for SEO, meta tags and all that, and it's really good quality photography. I mean, I guess that's still the case.
So keywords has always been the backbone of Pinterest because it is a search engine. So it's always been really, really important to make sure, like before, it's so tempting when you join Pinterest to just start like pinning lots and lots of things, but there is, a strategy behind it. And one of those strategy pieces is your keyword research. So it is really important to spend time documenting like all your keywords and your search terms and the things that your ideal customer is going to be typing into the search bar to look for your products and services. And if you've got an existing website or a Shopify store, that work's probably already been done, which saves you a job. But there's no harm in like refreshing your keywords because often they can be seasonal or trend-led, as some new product comes out, etc. Or if you've got a new offer on or a new service as well, you're going to want to add into that. Towards the end of last year, I did notice coming out of Pinterest a sort of slightly different narrative in that, yes, keywords are important and always will be important, but even more so, the images are now almost as important. So we used to say sort of like, when you have got your pin, the 60% of it is based on like your keywords, and then the other 40% is the image. But what I'm discovering more is people are saying, I don't always know the words, but I have kind of an image in my head. So I kind of need the image before the words. And I don't really know what it is, but I'll know it when I see it as well. So this is where sort of AI does come into the mix a little bit more as well in terms of things like that, is people don't always know what it looks like or what the words are to describe it as well. So I do feel like imagery is becoming more important. Not more important than keywords, but probably as important.
So how would they go about finding, for example, if they didn't know the exact words? Do they have categories? Do they have methods by which you can find things according to it's either for the garden or it's for the house and so on?
Yeah, so when you go to search, if you bring up Pinterest, if anybody listening to this podcast has like got Pinterest up at the same time, you can go into the search bar and you can just type in sort of any search terms at all. So say you might just type in, wedding dress. And then what will happen is it will give you lots and lots of more options. It will give you sizes, it will give you styles, it will give you trends. It'll maybe give you some brands as well that does it. So it does really, really filter down. There is also something called the Pinterest lens. And if you're in a store, for example, or if you're walking down the street, sometimes when you walk down the street and you see somebody in front of you and you're like, I really like her dress. I wonder where she got it from. You can take a picture of that person's dress and scan it into Pinterest and it'll give you like all these options.
And then get accused of stalking.
I know.
I mean, that must save a lot of time compared to, like you mentioned, the sort of frantic daily posting where you're at risk of nobody ever seeing it anyway, and all that time and effort that's gone into it. And I think small businesses feel obligated to use certain platforms because everybody else does. And actually, I often think less is more when it comes to attracting customers, because if you can attract fewer higher spending loyal customers who perhaps are Pinterest users because they've got more intent, I'm guessing that's better than the random TikTok shop or Instagram shop.
There's definitely people who use Pinterest have got a higher disposable income as well. So your more unique brands and like your unique products and services, that's the place, like Pinterest is such a good place for them to be discovered. I do find with TikTok, it's all about like the cheapness, isn't it? The discounts, the how much can I get for £5, etc. Whereas Pinterest isn't really like that. It's where you want to go. And this is why it's so popular with Gen Z as well, because they are definitely more creative. They want things to be unique. They want things to be personalized. They want things to be different. They don't want to be seen just to be wearing the same TikTok hoodie that everybody else seems to have managed to get for Christmas. And it costs like £5 or whatever, so it's a place to be. And it's a place for creators and designers to show their uniqueness. And it's a place for the buyer to purchase something different as well.
So here's a question. You mentioned about people buying from brands and so on. if I went on Pinterest and I wanted to create a whole outfit and I put together a whole outfit, but it could come from 5 or 6 different retailers, I guess, but I can do outfitting that perhaps other people wouldn't think of because they'd all go to the same store. Does that happen?
Yeah, so they've got like a new functionality called the collage function where you can create like a, if it was like the individual, so it's the same as me. I was wanting to go and buy a new outfit for an event I was going to. And I kind of knew in my head what I wanted. I didn't know where it was going to come from. I didn't know what shop it was going to come from. I could go onto Pinterest, create a collage board, almost like a scrapbook. And then I could just add images that I discovered on Pinterest, create this outfit. And then I could use that collage to go and be able to shop for all the individual items on there.
From different stores?
From different stores. And as well, like nobody comes to Pinterest and really types in like the latest Nike trainers or something with a brand. It's very non-brand searched as well. So obviously the big brands are on there, but people don't necessarily come on to say, I want a new jumper from Next. Because they would just go to the Next website.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They come on to find like this, the new things that they don't know about, which is why it is so good for the small business who maybe don't get discovered on Google because, for example, if they don't have a huge ad spend, what it's like on Google when you go on and you've got the big sponsored posts that pop up on page 1, and you might have to go to page 5, 6 or 7 to discover like a small brand or a small unknown brand. With Pinterest, like there's a higher chance of being discovered if you are sort of a smaller, if you are a small business, a small independent.
I also think on the outfitting point, you might have, let's go back to the dresses, a ladies' wear retailer, but they don't sell shoes or they don't sell accessories necessarily. But if they're able to create an outfit, it means that each of those stores will get a sale rather than thinking, I'm just going to have to go to a department store or Next or wherever to get what I want.
Yeah, and like going back to the boards as well. So like if I was on as a consumer and I knew I was going on holiday in July, I might create a board called July 2026 holiday. And I would start saving now. Like I would start searching for outfit inspiration and I would start saving pins to my own board. So when I actually come to make a decision, maybe in May time, then I've got all these ideas and inspiration, and that might be when I start to make my purchases. So people, they use Pinterest, like we said in the beginning, for ideas, inspiration, because they might not be ready to buy straight away, but then they might come back to that board when they are ready to purchase and they've got all this inspiration and ideas already saved for them there.
What it does sound like, though, is that if you've got e-commerce and you're doing the work for that, you're not duplicating the work because of the integration. So I'm guessing that rather than the consistent effort you talked about, it might take an hour to do an Instagram post. Once you've done your work on your website, and arguably what you said about updating the keywords seasonally, that should be best practice on the website anyway. It sounds like you just have to do the job once.
Yeah, I mean, it's much less time heavy than it is doing Instagram. So if you think about Instagram, people are like, you need to do a reel every day and you need to be on your stories and you need to be doing face to camera and you need to do all these things. And it's so overwhelming. But with Pinterest, like you don't have to show your face. So there's no need to be, unless you're doing it for, your website anyway, there's no need to be like talking to the camera. You don't need to show your face. You don't need to really put images of yourself on there. So that alone will save you lots and lots of time. You can, I always say pinners are planners. So we're in January now, but really we want to be pinning for what's happening in March, April, May.
So Mother's Day, Easter, that kind of thing.
Starting to think about spring holidays, etc. Mm-hmm. Because when, people are shopping, we're not shopping for Mother's Day. Well, hopefully not. We're not shopping for Mother's Day the day before Mother's Day. You would put a bit of thought into it, and maybe about the end of February or mid-February, we're starting to think about what we're going to buy my mum. Does it need to be personalised? Do I need to order it online? So we're forward planning. So when we're thinking about what products and services we're going to be pinning, we're not pinning for today, we're pinning for the future. So, for example, if we were a clothes reseller, we would already be thinking spring, summer, and pinning for that as well. So we can be forward planning, we can be organised, and we can create a set of pins in January and get them scheduled and posted way ahead of time. So come March, when people are starting to search for those things, our pins have already been on there for 3 months. they've already been indexed, the algorithm knows they're there, and you've got a much higher chance of being discovered.
The other thing I've heard you talk about is boards. What's the difference between a board and a pin?
So imagine Pinterest was a supermarket. Your board would be the different aisles of the supermarket, and then your pins would be the products. So for example, if we were a very famous supermarket, I can't think of any, we would have a board for the fruit and veg aisle. We would have one for bread. We would have one for meat, one for dairy, one for alcohol, one for sweet treats, whatever. And then within those boards, we would have all those individual products. So you can create boards for quite wide range, for example. So going back to that sort of fashion company, you might have a board for dresses, but you could tailor it down and niche it down even more to say wedding dresses for the summer, wedding dresses for the winter, summer dresses, dresses for going to Ibiza on holiday, etc. And it's kind of just like a way to group things together. And that is really useful for the user, for people discovering you. It's also really useful for Pinterest itself and the algorithm, because it tells algorithm what your account is about, all the different products and how you categorize them to allow them to be found even easier. So it's just a way of keeping things tidy and keeping things organized.
So for any retailer, independent retailer or whoever who's got a visual product and e-commerce, how should they get started?
So first thing would be to create your Pinterest business account. And if you've already got a Pinterest personal account, you can convert them. However, if your Pinterest personal account has got 500 boards about your garden, your nails, your dog, all that sort of stuff, I would create like a brand new business account that is purely going to be full of your business content as well, because that makes the Pinterest algorithm super clear about what this account is. If you convert an existing account and it's got 10 years worth of just like random stuff, the algorithm is going to be like, I don't even know what this person's doing. So I would always recommend a brand new business personal, brand new Pinterest account. And I would set it up and make sure that it's really clear. You link to your website, you can claim your website. You need to add like the Pinterest tag on it as well, so it can track all the traffic that goes between Pinterest and your website. You want to make sure all your settings are complete. And this is really important. I know it sounds obvious, but like your about section, your bio, etc., they should all be full of your keywords, which is why you always need to do that sort of pre-work before diving into creating the account as well, because you want to be able to start strong by sort of saying, what your business is, who it's for, what your products and services are. And then I would create maybe like 5 initial boards initially, because what you don't want to do is create like 100 boards and then 2 weeks later they're all empty and there's nothing being done. So I would maybe create 5 keyboards, and if you've got a Shopify site, you can integrate that straight away. If you don't, then I would just start pinning maybe once a day for the first 2 to 3 weeks, your key products that people are going to be searching for in the next 45 to 60 days. So if I was a fashion retailer and I was starting from scratch, I would probably create 5 boards, probably some key products that they have that are going to be popular in spring, and I would start pinning for them. I wouldn't be pinning winter clothes really by now. I would already be forward thinking to spring, summer.
How much effort do you think that would take just to help anybody who's thinking about having a go at this and is inspired? How much time and effort do you think it takes to start the whole Pinterest account and create those 5 boards?
I mean, I would say it's easy for me to say because I'd be like, I could do it in an hour. But if you were brand new to it, I would say set yourself aside like maybe a day a month, to get started. Because you know what it's like when we start anything, it does take a little bit more time. We need to make sure you need to do your keyword research. You need to sort of think ahead for 2026, those key seasonal points in the year. And, what are your goals? What are your products as well that you want to sell? And depending how creative you are, you could create a set of 30 pins on Canva. And, you can just use templates. You can buy pre-existing templates, etc. You don't need to overthink straight away because it's all about sort of testing it out and getting started. And I would always say, like, it's better to pin once a day with something that's maybe not totally perfect than wait 3 months until you're like 100% sure you're happy with all your designs, etc., but you've waited 3 months to pin anything. So I'm always like, let's test, constant testing. That first sort of quarter, that first 90 days of using Pinterest is all testing. It's all just working out like what things look like. Are your search terms working? Is anybody discovering you? And also, it does take time with Pinterest. Like, you don't just go viral overnight like you do on TikTok as well. It does take time. And because of that, a lot of people do give up too quickly with Pinterest because they don't see results quickly. But honestly, starting today is the best thing because it does take a bit of time. Yeah.
What you've actually said, though, actually aligns to everything that as a team we teach when we do a marketing strategy and a content plan, and we look at the key messaging and the promotional calendar, and then drill that down into those who've got physical businesses. We look at what the windows might be, what the campaigns might be. And so there is a strong alignment, again, in not having to do the work twice, which I quite like because it makes it all very much more integrated. And the fact that there's that bounce between the e-commerce and Pinterest and back again really feels like something that would drive increased sales and revenue too.
And the thing with Pinterest is because it kind of sits on top of your ecosystem as well. So by the time you know, this is one thing to be aware of as well when people are wanting to do Pinterest, is everything else needs to be in place first. So you do need to have a working website that is responsive and has products on there and works and is available. If you've got a newsletter sign up, then that process obviously has to work. You know, your landing page does need to work and people can fill in the form and join your newsletter. So it kind of does need to, it's like the cherry on the top. So everything else needs to be in place for it to be working well. But that just means that by the time you come to do Pinterest, it won't take as much time because everything else is in place already. Like you were saying about your website, the descriptions, the keyword research, the SEO has already been done. The imagery is already there, etc. So it doesn't have to be like a time drain for any business owner.
And the bouncing between the e-commerce and the Pinterest and back again, have you got any stats on what kind of increased revenue that looks like? Or is that completely down to the quality of the content?
Yeah, I mean, it's like conversion rates as well. It's often, you know, you can have the best Pinterest board, you can have the best Pinterest account, but when that user clicks through to the website, if the link is broken or if the product is out of stock or the website is down or it's not clear how much it is and things like that, that is going to affect your conversion rate as well. So although Pinterest can drive as much traffic, I don't have specific stats, but just as an example, you know, you can be driving as much traffic as you like to a certain product. But if that product is then out of stock, then it's wasted.
Yeah, just like with anything else. But I mean, in that case, I suppose your website kicks in, does some remarketing or says, its product is out of stock, put your email address in so we can notify you when it comes back. So that integration, again, sounds like it could be really powerful with the remarketing and so on and so forth.
Yeah, one of the questions I often get asked is, well, what happens if there's such a long, you know, if my pin could be getting discovered in 12 months' time, what happens if that product is no longer out of stock? What happens on Pinterest? And, you know, they're like, should I just delete the pin? And I'm like, well, you can delete the pin if you want, but then you're going to lose all that amazing traffic that you had previously. But then it's up to like what happens on the website. So if you're sending somebody to a dress that is a pink dress, so if that pink dress is no longer in stock, then on the website you could actually redirect that person to say, well, the pink's not here, but we do have this green one instead, or fill in this email form and then we can get back to you when it's back in stock and things like that as well. Yeah.
Classically, it could send somebody to the website for a product that's obsolete now, but it could then redirect them, could it, to something similar?
Yeah.
That's
this
great.
is no longer in stock, but this is the 2026 version of that 2024 outfit that is no longer here. Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess you have to work with quite a few e-commerce people to make sure that the whole process runs smoothly. I suppose my last query, because people will want to know, you said analyze and check and all that stuff and make sure things are performing. Has it got a sensible dashboard that people can easily use and you can actually read and less disappearing down a rabbit hole like Google Analytics?
No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's
Good.
so easy to read. It's got a whole, when you create your business account, you get access to like your customer insights. Like you can see what people are searching for. You can see which keywords are, being most successful. You can see which pins are getting the most traffic, like who's saved what, who's clicked through, impressions. So yeah, the analytics dashboard is really, really easy, but be concise as well. It does give you a lot of data. And then also it's got an ads, but we're really just talked about organic as well, but there is a very good ads platform with Pinterest, which is really like one of the most positive things about it, I guess, is that when you run ads, when you run ads on Google and Meta, as soon as you stop spending, that ad disappears forever, never to be seen again. But when you stop spending on Pinterest, that pin still gets traffic. So your content will still work for you, even when you've stopped spending as well. So you do get a much higher return on your ad spend. And the ads platform is really intuitive. It's got an AI functionality within it now that they launched last year. So it's easy to set up and run and monitor your ads as well.
Obviously, it's time to recap. I'd like to replay back to you what I think I've learned today, because that should hopefully ensure that everybody else who's listened has learned it too. The first point was this isn't social media, and you described it as an intent-led, planning-driven sort of discoverability platform. That the visual search is key and becoming more so, but the imagery, it's better to have something than nothing and not make everything so perfect, as long as the images are there and engaging and with the right keywords and categorizations.
Yeah.
You've said long lifespan, and that thing about the ads is really interesting because the fact that it doesn't just disappear, it just sort of drops back to unadvertised, means you haven't wasted your time creating it either. It sounds like if you're doing e-commerce anyway, it's not actually doubling up the work. And the fact that we would have to encourage people to focus on a few boards to begin with and evergreen content, which could otherwise be redirected if it ends up being out of stock or no longer on the range. And that e-commerce integration sounds like it can clearly build maximum impact because people are creating their own consumer boards. They could come back later. So it's like creating a shopping basket across a whole high street. So have I got it right?
Yeah. And I was just going to add in a bit about the imagery as well is, you don't have to go and create lots of new photos and videos and things. You can repurpose what you've already got. You can take your images, your really strong images that you've got on your website, or you could repurpose content if you are on social media and you've been doing reels or carousels or whatever. You can repurpose content that you've already got. You don't need to start from scratch as well. The one thing I would say about the imagery is Facebook kind of became popular and people would just upload every single photo they ever took. And they would have a night out and there would be like 150 photos of this night out and they'd be blurry and they would just be like all over the place. So, the image quality is important. And obviously you want it to correspond to whatever your pin is about. So if you are selling pink jumpers, then the image should obviously be a pink jumper and not the green jumper as well. So so the image is important, but you don't have to start from scratch. You can use what you've already got.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Frances, so much for sharing your insight. Clearly, for listeners, if your product is visual, Pinterest should be something you consider. Planned, organised, and give it time to watch the returns grow. I'm Clare Bailey. I've been joined by Frances Brown from The Retail Champion, and this has been Retail Reckoning.